Have you ever heard of a fire so intense it caused an explosion heard 40 miles away? A disaster so catastrophic it rained fire from the sky and forced Queen Victoria to stop her royal train just to witness the devastation. This is the story of the Great Fire of Newcastle and Gateshead in 1854. In the mid-19th century, Newcastle and Gateshead were the beating heart of Britain's industrial empire, built along the River Tyne. The steep riverbanks were crammed with factories, mills, and warehouses, all packed tightly against tenement housing. This was a city living on a tinderbox, a volatile mix of industry and humanity. Connecting the two towns was the old stone bridge and Robert Stephenson Excess brand new high-level bridge, a modern marvel that would soon become a terrifying front-row seat to an unprecedented disaster. The bustling quaysides, filled with the raw materials of empire, were just waiting for a single, fatal spark. That spark came just after midnight on Friday, October 6, 1854. A fire broke out at the Wilson & Sons worsted manufactory on the Gateshead riverbank. Initially, it seemed like a standard industrial blaze, but this factory was filled with huge quantities of oil used for treating wool, which acted as a powerful accelerant. Despite the efforts of local fire engines, the oil-fueled inferno was unstoppable. Within an hour, the entire building was a single mass of flame. Soon after, its roof collapsed. The fire at the mill was over, but its immense heat was already reaching for its next victim, a vast, ominously stocked warehouse right next door. The fire now leaped to Bertram's warehouse, a massive 7-story building considered fireproof for its time. But its construction was no match for its contents. Thousands of tons of sulfur and nitrate of soda. As the intense heat radiated across, the sulfur inside began to ignite. Witnesses described what happened next with horror. Molten, burning sulfur began streaming from the windows in glowing blue rivers of flame like streams of lava. The entire warehouse became a single body of fire, an awfully magnificent firestorm casting a lurid purple light across the city. The scene was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed, but the true, unimaginable calamity was yet to come. Then, the world exploded. At 10 minutes past 3 in the morning, the warehouse vaults detonated in a single, tremendous blast. The shockwave lifted ships from the river and made the mighty high-level bridge quiver. On the Gateshead side, buildings crumbled into dust. The historic St. Mary's Church was shattered, its clock hands frozen at the moment of the blast. A mushroom cloud of black smoke shot into the sky, followed by a deafening rain of burning debris. The explosion was so powerful it was heard by miners deep underground 11 miles away and by sailors 20 miles out at sea. One huge stone was flung 400 yards, crashing through the roof of a pub. For the crowds watching from the bridges and quayside, this wasn't a sound. It was a physical force that lifted them off their feet. The explosion had not only obliterated its surroundings but had unleashed a horrific new reality. It was now raining fire on Newcastle. The explosion acted like a giant cannon, launching flaming projectiles across the River Tyne and starting a completely new firestorm in Newcastle. Roofs were torn from buildings, leaving them open to the fiery onslaught. In moments, a huge stretch of the city's commercial heart, from the quayside all the way up to Pilgrim Street, was ablaze. And at this critical moment, the city was defenseless. The fire brigades were either still fighting the Gateshead fire or, in a cruel twist of fate, had been buried under the rubble of the very explosion they were trying to prevent. With no one to stop it, the fire spread uncontrollably, turning the lower parts of both towns into a single, terrifying cauldron of flame. As chaos reigned, an incredible human response began. The newly installed telegraph, once its damaged wires were repaired, was used to summon aid from across the north of England. Fire engines were sent by special express trains from as far as Carlisle and Berwick. Floating fire engines steamed up the Tyne from Shields and Sunderland. Soldiers were dispatched to restore order and help with the rescue, but just as they seemed to be gaining control, the fire in Gateshead roared back to life, igniting a flour mill. To halt its relentless advance, a desperate decision was made. Sappers and miners were brought in to use explosives to demolish houses, creating a firebreak that, along with the powerful water jets from the floating engines, finally contained the Gateshead blaze. When the smoke finally cleared, the true cost was revealed. The devastation was immense. 53 people lost their lives, including prominent citizens like the warehouse owner Charles Bertram and the son of famous architect John Dobson. Hundreds were injured, overwhelming the city's hospitals. Entire streets and neighborhoods on both sides of the river were annihilated. In Newcastle, the historic Custom House was gutted, and the narrow medieval lanes of the commercial quarter were reduced to smoldering ruins. The total financial loss was estimated at £500,000, a colossal sum for the time, equivalent to tens of millions today. For the hundreds of families left homeless and penniless, the loss was absolute. In the aftermath, the community rallied. A benevolent fund was established to support the victims. Donations poured in from all over the country, including $100 from Queen Victoria herself, who later had her train stop on the high-level bridge to see the damage with her own eyes. In total, over $11,000 was raised, a testament to Victorian charity. The fund helped 800 families, supported widows and orphans, and reimbursed the hospitals that had cared for the wounded. A formal inquiry was held to find out what went wrong. The cause of the initial fire in the mill remained a mystery, but the explosion drew intense scientific scrutiny. The final verdict concluded that the blast was caused by the interaction of the sulfur and nitrate of soda stored in the warehouse. The jury's most important recommendation was simple and stark. These two substances should never be stored together again. The Great Fire of 1854 was a brutal lesson in industrial risk, learned at a terrible and unforgettable cost, forever changing the face of the two cities and the rules of public safety. Thank you so much for watching this chronicle of one of Britain's forgotten disasters. If you found this story fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history. See you next time.